Yo, what to do, YouTube? It's your boy ColtsTalk, and we never really had a chance to talk about this, but I think now it's the perfect time, especially being as though where the Colts are, sitting on the couch watching the playoffs. Did the Colts do Frank Reich wrong? Did they do him wrong by firing him mid-season and not just letting him finish it, even though the Colts were not going to be, playoff contenders anyway? When you look at it in retrospective, the Colts went and got Jeff Saturday after, and it was just worse from there. But if you look at from the Colts' direction of what they wanted to do, I would say no. And I say that why is because Coach Frank would be the best coach to put you in a scenario to win. And if the Colts want to do anything or any type of form or fashion to get a QB of the future, what do they got to do? They got to lose. And even with Coach Frank Reich there, Matt Ryan was probably looking like his best version of himself this year with Frank Reich as his head coach. Even though that doesn't really say much because Matt Ryan had a very terrible year, but I think Coach Frank Reich is a very good head coach. He's not perfect, right? He's not perfect, but I think for a guy that you will want to, have some type of voice in the locker room and have some type of, inspiration, I would say, to actually mesh with your players, I think Coach Reich is that fit, especially when it comes to developing QB talent. A lot of people, mention Coach Frank Reich because he was a former quarterback himself for how good he can be with young QBs or veteran QBs themselves. That's one of the reasons why they thought that Carson Wentz and Frank Reich would work. That's why they thought Matt Ryan and Frank Reich would work. And if you look at it, I mean, Frank Reich only had Andrew Luck for 1 year, and then after that Jacob Brissett, and then after that it was Philip Rivers. He's never really had a chance to actually have a young developing quarterback out the draft that he can train and melt and gel into, actually being a good tandem for each other. When you look at, like quarterback whisperers like Bruce Arians himself. I mention Bruce Arians a lot because he's one of those coaches that you want a QB to have. And he's worked with a lot of quarterbacks in his time, and he doesn't really get enough flowers of what his potential is and what he can do. And you can kind of see that what that effect right now from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers of what just happened to them this year. But Frank Reich is definitely one of those guys of my perception of him is pretty much what Bruce Arians will bring to your team. And I'm not saying he is as good as Bruce Arians, but I do think he's one heck of a coach for sure. And I think he was just put in a bad situation when you look at it in retrospective because he can only control what he can control. I mean, he didn't really have control of the roster. He didn't really have control of his coaching staff. So he was just out there because this wasn't even his job to begin with. Because if most of you can remember, this job was set up for Josh McDaniels because that was Ballard's guy. I'm pretty sure Ballard was all in on getting Josh McDaniels and bringing him here, even though McDaniels backed out at the last second. Thank goodness. But I mean, McDaniels was supposed to be in Indy, and Frank Reich was a last minute option. What's comes into another conclusion as I'm speaking is that the Colts usually have a lot of these last minute options when they're pretty much just like stranded at the end. They're like, oh, well, I guess we got to go with this guy. Because when you look at the head coaching job, it was for McDaniels. They got Frank Reich. The quarterback scenario, they were supposed to go get a quarterback out the draft. Last minute, go get Philip Rivers. Last minute, quarterback situation, Philip Rivers retires. Go get Carson Wentz. Last minute situation, they get rid of Wentz. Go get Matt Ryan. So it's a lot of last minute things without actual process of building a team because they want to be competitive. And anybody knows how an owner's mindset is. They do not want to lose. All the owners, I'm pretty sure, want to have a winning mindset and bringing a championship to the hometown of which they own for the football team. It is what it is. That's the owner mindset, I'm pretty sure. And, they just they dealt their cards, and that's what they was dealt. Losing seasons and, a freaking locker room explosion where pretty much everyone's not seeing eye to eye and everyone's on their own path. And, you get players like Naheem Hines who doesn't want to be there anymore and wants to go to an actual winning environment. And they gave him that grant. And look at him now. He's in Buffalo. So for Frank Reich, I definitely think he could have finished the season. But that would only be if they wanted to still be competitive from my mindset. Like I said, I think the best person that gives you a winning type of a winning chance would be Frank Reich. And of course, it would have been that way. Matt Ryan still would have been starting, or he probably, knowing Coach Frank Reich, if it would have been a terrible year for Matt, he probably would have started Sam Ellinger a long time ago. because that's just Frank Reich. Like I said, Frank Reich had a few good years, 7-9, 10-6, 11-win season as well that I can remember. But he didn't really have a lot of bad years as his head coaching experience, because it wasn't even like, I would say our defense, they were good, but we know we got gassed a lot on the defensive side. They had a lot of holes on both sides of the field. Like I said, like I think if Frank Reich would actually got a quarterback or had the chance to gel a quarterback into being the franchise quarterback and him being the head coach, I think we would have got a better result out of the Indianapolis Colts offensive side in retrospective, because I mean, he didn't even have an offensive coordinator. I mean, they fired the one we had and they got Marcus Brady, who was the quarterback coach, and promoted him to the offensive coordinator, and then they got rid of him, and then it just never worked out from there. So like I said, the coaching staff in general, besides Frank Reich, was never really structured well. Like I said, it was a last minute option for all these processes, and I think they should have figured that out right after Andrew Luck's retirement. I think right after Luck retired, I think you should have figured out, okay, what are we gonna do to keep being competitive, or how can we go back to being what we want to be? Like I said, there's no knock on the front office or the owner or anything or how they want to do it. But I think the structure would have been a little bit better if you would have probably rebuilt it right after that retirement speech and then worked from there. You probably would have had you probably would have have a different locker room, and you probably would have had a different type of feel of what this team could be if you could have figured that situation out a long time ago. Like I said, they're trying to do it now, which is good, but I think they're a few years late, I would say, in my opinion. But you can go also saying that there's not a lot of franchise quarterbacks in these past drafts. This year is a little bit better. Even next year is better than this one. But hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. I do think Frank Reich would get a head coaching job elsewhere. It's unfortunate they ended at Indy, but like I said, his time is going to be up eventually. He wasn't the best head coach, but the way that the team was going, the direction the team was going, I think we would have been wasting Coach Frank Reich's time, in all honesty. But it is what it is. He'll find a job elsewhere. He's got a few visits. I've seen Carolina, and the Chargers is another team that's looking for a head coach. He'll find a job elsewhere. I just hope it's not in the AFC South, because he's probably going to make us pay if we do play them. His team, if he does happen to coach his team in the AFC South. But you guys let me know your thoughts in the comment section about Frank Reich. Did the Colts do him dirty? Where do you see him landing in the future? And how do you think they should have handled this process earlier? But let me know all these things in the comment section. This is Marcus, and until next time, you've been Culture Shocked.